Our text for this evening is from Luke 17, 11 to 19, the well-known story of Jesus cleansing the 10 lepers. Luke 17, 11. And it came to pass, as he went to Jerusalem, that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered into a certain village, there met him 10 men that were lepers, which stood afar off. And they lifted up their voices and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said unto them, Go, show yourselves unto the priests. And it came to pass that as they went, they were cleansed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, and with a loud voice glorified God, and fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks. And he was a Samaritan. And Jesus answering said, Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? There are not found that returned to give glory to God, save this stranger. And he said unto him, Arise, go thy way, thy faith hath made thee whole. The theme of Luke's Gospel is the seeking shepherd who was sent by the Father to seek and to save those who were lost. A few chapters before this, we have chapter 15, where Jesus tells 3 parables to illustrate this very truth. Those parables are very well known. The shepherd who lost one of his sheep and went out of his way to find that one lost sheep. The woman who lost one of her 10 coins and turned her house upside down in order to retrieve it, and the man who lost one of his sons, and at the end he receives him back penitent. And all through Jesus' earthly ministry, he was going around seeking and saving those who were lost. And therefore it was no coincidence that as he was going on his way to Jerusalem, that he met these 10 lepers. Because in going this particular way, he was seeking and he would save one who was lost. Because in that village, on the way to Jerusalem, there was one who was lost in the vileness and in the corruption of his sin. One who needed to have the Good Shepherd seek and save him. But not everyone whom Jesus met in his earthly ministry, and not even everyone whom Jesus healed on earth, was one for whom he came, and one whom he sought, and one whom he would save. And we have here a perfect illustration of that truth as well, because in this village there were 10 men who were lepers. 10 men who were equally miserable, with the same disease, with the same outward physical circumstances, and yet only one of those 10 men received salvation from Jesus Christ. All 10 of them asked for mercy, and all 10 of them received something from Jesus Christ. All 10 of them had their health restored. But not all 10 were true children of God. Not all 10 truly believed in Jesus Christ. They ought to have. They had evidence, unmistakable proof that Jesus Christ was the Messiah promised by God. Because, after all, here was one who could cleanse lepers. And the Jews knew from the Old Testament that only a miracle of God himself could cleanse a leper from the horrible disease of leprosy. And here was a man who was able to cleanse lepers, and yet only one of the 10 believed that this Jesus of Nazareth was actually the Messiah promised in the Old Testament. And we know that this is the case because of what Christ said to him, "Thy faith hath made thee whole." And we know also because he produced the unmistakable evidence of saving faith, and that is thankfulness. 1 was thankful, 9 were not. Let's look at the abounding gratitude of the cleansed leper. First of all, at the cause of his gratitude, then at the manifestation of his gratitude, and thirdly, at the underlying reason for his gratitude. We can understand this man's gratitude only when we first understand his misery. This man was miserable in the first place because he was a leper. And lepers were miserable because of the horrible disease with which they were afflicted. Leprosy was a miserable condition, the worst possible disease known in that day. First of all, it was a miserable condition because of the symptoms of the disease. We read in Leviticus 13 how leprosy started. Perhaps a little change in color on your skin, perhaps on your hand. You wake up one morning, you have a little spot on your hand, and you would think there's nothing terribly serious about that. Or maybe a hair on your hand would change color, or a spot would grow. Something small on the surface of the skin, and you would not be terribly concerned about it. But leprosy would spread, and it would spread quickly, and before you would know it, leprosy would be spreading throughout your body, consuming your inner organs and eating away at your very flesh. And so a leper began to feel utterly miserable. And then it would start to eat away at your limbs and at your extremities. First of all, you would lose feelings in your extremities. Perhaps you would lose feelings in your fingers or in your toes. And eventually, those fingers or those toes would fall off. And you would become horribly deformed as your body would be twisted and deformed by this horrible disease known as leprosy. And as this disease would permeate through your body, you would start to smell like a leper, because leprosy would permeate the body in such a way that you would give off the stench of rotting flesh. And so a leper was very easily spotted. He was disgusting, covered in revolting sores, and he smelled like a walking corpse. And what's more, this disease would attack your vocal cords, so that instead of being able to speak normally, all you could do would be to croak. And so a leper would have a harsh and rasping voice. It was easy then to spot a leper. You could see him, you could smell him, and you could hear him. But worse than all of this was the fact that leprosy was incurable. You notice, as we read in Leviticus 13, there were all kinds of rules and regulations on how to detect leprosy and what the priest was supposed to do, but there were no rules on how to cure the disease, because there was no cure for leprosy. Only a miracle from God could deliver a leprosy from the misery of his disease. And that's why, for example, in Numbers 12, when God smote Miriam with leprosy, that Aaron cried out these words, "Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed when he cometh out of his mother's womb." If you were a leper, you were as good as dead.